Happy Friday and happy Memorial Day weekend Friday, which is super exciting. I am Jen Wilson. I'm with Convergence Coaching, and I am here with my good friend Amy Vetter, and we are here to process leadership insights related to the accounting profession. And Amy and I were just together in Orlando, Florida at the AICPA Council meeting. And a lot of stuff happened there. And we thought we would process some of those things that happened live with you today. So I will start us briefly by shout out to our friend Carla McCall, the managing partner, CEO of AAF CPAs, and the new head of or chair of the AICPA board. Super excited to see her in her leadership role as somebody who really understands firm transformation and change management and how important it is to be an employer of choice and attract and retain talent. It is super exciting.
All right. All right. Can you hear me now? Hopefully our internet is working okay. Carolyn, are you seeing us okay?
You're there. I haven't been. So
okay.
I dropped. And I've had nothing but internet problems for weeks. So,
Okay.
So sad but true. I've changed my carrier here one more time. We're trying the mobile hotspot now instead of the satellite. So
okay.
Anyway.
Awesome. All right. Well, I think we were on with Carla McCall.
Yeah, we were. Did you drop too, Amy? So anyway.
Yeah, because I thought it was me. So.
Right. Hey, everybody.
We need internet power and girl power right now. So I'll take it from there.
You go. You pick up.
Okay. So it's funny that Jen started out with Carla talking about just what a good example she is as far as firm transformation. But one of the things that I talked about last night is just, where she had these little moments of breaking tradition, which was pretty awesome. So her walk-on song was Girls Run the World by Beyonce, which is definitely a new way to enter into your chair position for the AICPA, which is also just an example of just how much transformation there is. We saw a number of women leaders get moved into board positions, chair positions. They were part of a committee with Jen on looking at the national pipeline issue. And so it's just exciting to see an example of that happening in this profession and in the world. And it's an example for everyone. And I know, when I saw Boyd Search at the airport, and his daughter was there to see it. And I know Carla's daughter. And so it's just exciting for those examples to happen. When I know for Jen and I, there were very few examples when we were younger. And it's very powerful for everyone to see that.
I love it. And also innovators.
Mm-hmm.
Carla's an innovator. She's a change leader. She is a transformer. She hasn't let anything stay status quo at her firm. And she's an attractor and a retainer, and values people and relationships. And to have her at the helm right now is huge. I'm just super excited. And I loved seeing all the board slate for all the new positions for the board were all women. And then Amy came up to me afterwards and said, "Hey, the National Pipeline Advisory Group, man, that seemed like a lot of women." And it's not all women. It was balanced, but it was probably a little bit more women than men, and not by intention. We instead chose stakeholder perspectives and geography and size and all these other elements. Not we didn't look at gender. And but that's just sort of how it turned out. So it was a very exciting time in our profession's history to see this much change. And
Yeah.
I know I left excited about that. Also had the opportunity at council to talk about the draft pipeline strategic plan, how to grow the number of people who choose a career in accounting, some of whom will go on to become licensed, how to make our piece of the talent pie in accounting bigger. And we issued a draft report 10 days ago, maybe. You can find that report at accountingpipeline.org. You can download the 7-page executive summary for the Cliff Notes, or you can, get serious and dive deep and read an 88-page draft. And it's critical. If you care about talent, you're going to have to read it, break it off into chunks, and read it a little bit at a time. We have a feedback form on that website. We would love feedback on the ideas that are in there and what we missed, and maybe what you think we suggested that you have experience in, and successes you've had with it, or things we suggested you don't think will work. Why? We've been listening and learning the whole way. We're interested in feedback on the report for sure. So we got to present that at council too.
Yeah. And, I think there was a theme that I took from that I think is an important theme when we talk about transformation and innovation. And it is the difference between inputs and outputs. And how someone's skills get evaluated. I think when we talk about just the profession changing and industry changing overall, with the way technologies come into the world and the speed of learning, we have not experienced what our children have experienced, what teenagers have experienced, what young adults have experienced, and their speed of learning. That's much different than the learning that we went through when we didn't have computers, the internet, AI, all of the social media that educate kids today. And the difference is that if you really have a heavy interest in something at young ages, people are able to gain skill sets much different than in the past. Not necessarily from school, not necessarily from college, real world experience right away. And that right away experience can happen where people, I've met a number of young adults that have started businesses at very young ages. The opportunities that are available to children and young adults is something that we can't imagine because we did not go through it. We did not experience it. So what happens now is that there's a worldliness to young adults, to children coming into the profession, coming into any profession that's much different than yesterday. And we've always had institutions to educate people to get to that next level. And that's been our way to evaluate whether someone can reach the next step. And I got a big takeaway from this, and Jen, you can comment on it or tell me if I'm wrong, but a big takeaway being that we don't care how you got there. If you have the skill sets, if you have the competencies to do a job, then those competencies are what should be evaluated and what should be respected, not necessarily the name of a college, the name of the degree. It's that you can actually do the job. And there's many routes to getting there. And those routes are always going to be changing. And that's what we have to realize is we can keep trying to hold on to tradition, and we can keep trying to hold on to the way things have always been and how we decide that someone gets promoted or evaluated or passes a certain level. Or we can take this opportunity that what I really saw with MPAG is the learning that happened with this group. And Jen being a great leader, facilitator of that, trying to take our bias out of it, trying to take our belief systems out of it, which is very hard, and just dive into educating ourselves on what it's like to be in someone else's shoes today and not in our shoes 20, 30 years ago. So
you just, you loaded that like a powder keg full of ideas. So I love it, all of it. So yeah, one of the real findings by the National Pipeline Advisory Group was that the additional cost and time of education to become, in particular, to be licensed CPA was potentially a barrier, not just to the pathway to CPA, but to choosing accounting as a career. The idea of it, even if they weren't sure they would become a CPA, that additional time and cost of education was a barrier. And so we did work on that. That's one of our 6 themes in the strategic plan. And, we're not saying that the current paths don't work. You can do a bachelor's degree plus a master's and pass the CPA exam and become a CPA. And that's a great way to get there. You can do a bachelor's degree and an additional 30 hours and pass the CPA exam. And that's a great way to get there. What we did, though, is we said, hey, where are we now? And what has to change in the marketplace today, but also where is this whole game headed? And not just the accounting game, but the area of professional education and professional licensure, and where are other professions headed, where are other licenses headed, and we started to really study and learn. And what we found was that we needed to have some all additional ways forward. And they, our big picture is we are not anti-education at NPAG. We are pro-education. We had some of our best learning came from our academics. And so there isn't any question. We're pro university learning. Let's do it. And there's options to become licensed by doing experiential learning on the transcript with universities, colleges that we advocate for. We also recognize where we need to head is experiential learning, not on a college transcript, delivered by employers or in other ways that could serve to get those competencies or skills or abilities that Amy talked about. And if somebody has those skills, abilities, or competencies and can pass the CPA exam, that they too should be licensed. And we're not there yet. That it's an idea. It's not a framework that is built yet. But our commitment and what we're calling for is not to take a position on the number of hours of education somebody has, because that's sort of yesterday's paradigm. We want education as part of it, but instead to say, what are the competencies and skills and abilities people have? Not the inputs, but the outputs. And how could we measure that? And how could we welcome them into our community? And there are people out there today working in firms and in finance departments that already have these competencies and skills. They may find an easier path with this idea. And so, NPAG did take a position that we think the future of the license and to future proof it and to make sure it's sustainable. We move away from inputs to outputs. We embrace experiential learning, and we create a framework, a common framework of competencies that are needed together as a community, not any one body creating this competency framework, but employers having a big say as the primary users of talent, but really getting that competency framework built and helping people find their way to the license in different ways. And so that was one of our recommendations. It's only one of many that we have in our strategy. And by the way, and people hate it when I say this, people who are really focused on this issue can't stand this next sentence. So, get ready. By itself, solving this problem is not enough to really cause the pipeline to grow. There are so many other issues that are influencing today's talent pool away from accounting. And I would be remiss if I didn't say the employee experience is one of them. And Amy and I have only spent the last 4 years talking about it. Go back to leadership lunch chats. Starting salaries do not hold up to other business major starting salaries. Overwork and overwhelm, whether they're real or not, we have taken our, some kind of brand pride in talking about how hard the work is and how rough it is and how many hours we're working and things like that. And that has got to shift. We've got to take the overwhelm and overwork out. We haven't included underrepresented minorities and underrepresented groups and just attracted and included and had them belong. And so the number and the representation against the U.S. population isn't there. And we really have to shift that. There's so many things in the strategy. And so focusing on time and cost of education, yes, super important by itself, isn't going to get us there.
Well, one thing I'd like, because it keeps being said this way, and I don't know if I want to just pivot it when I say it, is that we're not talking about an easier path there. It's not necessarily an easier path. It's an alternative way of being educated. And so it's just education that leads to the competencies that someone can do the job. But I would say that those competencies are something that should be at every level of the profession, not just at starting, because these are still the conversations that happen of like, well, they didn't spend the time that I did, working before they get promoted to partner, before they get promoted to manager, or we have these very traditional ways. But one of the things I've had, the pleasure of being in the tech industry, no one looks at your number of years when you're in the tech industry. They look at your experience because they want to know that your experience can help them hit the benchmarks to keep getting investment, to growing the company, and so forth. Not one time was I asked about how many years I did a job. It was more about whether I could do the job and did I have a background that proved that I could do the job, and what were those examples of doing the job. So it comes back to competencies versus years put in, because everybody's different, and there are people that those years put in mean something in their way of learning. I always, and it's always interesting when you see your children too, because I think my oldest son and I are similar, and then my youngest son is much different. My youngest son can like immediately read something, somehow never has to do homework, but always gets A's. Like he just gets it, right? And my older son and I have to take a lot of time to read, and it's much slower for us to get to the same spot in that same path. However, experientially, we are both very experiential, and that's how we learn.
Oh
But
boy.
at the end, in the when you're looking at the outputs that you want from somebody, what does it matter of how they got there? No matter
Right.
what level you are, if they are ready to lead in your firm, let them lead. Find
Yeah.
ways to let them lead. If they are ready to be an owner and to show that they have the sales acumen and the business development acumen and the leadership acumen and the technical acumen, they've already shown those things. Why do we have to look at, well, they haven't been a CPA yet for 12, 15 years? So all of those things matter because the speed of the world has changed. And there's always going to be people that will be willing to go down that path, but then there's a lot of people that aren't, because that's just not how they're made. And we've got to figure out, which makes it very hard as an owner today, of how you create that flexibility for someone to find different pathways to the same thing, or the flexibility for that people to learn different skills before going up, they're going sideways, and investing in the right people to go sideways, and not saying they're too expensive to go sideways. So,
Yes.
so it's very important that we think about all these things, because one of the biggest things that I think hit me, and I know it's been said a number of times, but when we look at the issues with the numbers, it's not necessarily whether it's accounting or not. I mean, there are those issues, but we've got 2/3 of the profession retiring. So that's a big number to have to fill. And so in order to do that, you've got to think of new ways, be innovative, transform, and find, whether it's technology, offshoring, people, how is this going to look in the future, and not fight to keep things the same as it's always been. What
Yes.
I felt there was a lot of palms up.
Yeah.
And I think it was a huge shift in energy in the room, compared to a year ago when you began. So I want to just commend you and the whole group for the work that you've done. And I think everybody's seen how you've done it so unbiased, and really tried to bring in all viewpoints. And I think it's amazing. It's such a pinnacle thing to have done. So I am honored to be your friend. I was very proud of you
Thank you.
there, and proud of the group.
Thanks. Yeah. I mean, and we still have work to do. Our final report's not due till July, end of July. We're open to all this feedback and incorporating it, and still listening and learning as we're doing it. And then the real work is implementing the ideas. A couple of things I want to say related to what you talked about, and then we'll have to wrap. I I think that, all the way along, there's this very significant commitment to quality and to protect the public. And there isn't anything that is recommended that we believe will impact those in the report, those issues. There's no like it's getting easier, or we're making it wimpier or something. And the example that I would use is, back in the day when I first came into this profession, this application called Lotus 123 was invented, and it was the predecessor to Excel. And before that, people really prided themselves in using a 10 key, or being able to actually add a column of numbers on a green sheet in their head and do it fast, and almost like a race with their neighbor or whatever.
Yeah.
And so when people started to use the spreadsheet, there was this feeling like, you lazy dog, you're going to be stupid now that you can't add this column of numbers in your head, and that you're not using a 10 key. And, these are things that we valued in the past as pathways to get to an answer. And now we were going to use this computer pathway, and it was going to make us, not as smart or something. And I just want you to know that was, improper thinking. It was like making something that an evolution that has really made a major impact in our throughput in our profession, and our ability to do very complex tasks. And of course, technology is evolving again with AI, and we'll see more of that. But there isn't any intention to take out the quality and the technical skill and the leadership skill it's an intention to document what those expectations are and begin to be able to measure whether or not people are exhibiting those skills and abilities. And we're basically saying that just having a certain number of hours of education does not mean those skills exist necessarily. And not everybody would get them from that path. Some will get them through the experience. They'll get them in different ways, and that we need to embrace those different ways, not to say that one way is better than another, but to have sort of a similar measurement of if they were gotten, which is this competency framework. And that's crucial. So I don't have any concerns that what we've done is lessen. And we are partnered with and listening to and getting input from the academic community all the way along, because they are central to this. Who knows competency development and skills development better, or has more years doing it than those folks. So they're with us, and we're hoping that continues as we build this competency framework, and they'll have a role helping organizations build these skills on more maybe the commercial side to finance departments and firms. So lots there. I mean, we could talk about this all day. I know none of us has the time for that, but please download the report. Please read it. Please provide comments. Amy, I thank you for everything I learned from you every day. And I loved seeing your face there while we were doing it, and sharing the ideas. And I'm hoping that more people will get involved. The only other thing is, in the report, we're asking every person to take the pipeline pledge, which is a personal grassroots commitment that you're going to change some things that you personally can change without your organization doing anything. And we have a list of those things, and that's out on the website too, the pipeline pledge. Love you to take it if you would, everybody. And not just take the pledge, but go do the things. That's what we really want you to do. And it's things that will really make a difference, including stopping kitchen table complaining about our profession. That might be an easy one for us to commit to. So thanks everybody for being with us today. I'm sure we'll process more talent related ideas in our leadership lunch chats in future sessions. And I don't know if Caroline can nod or tell us, are we on next week? We are on next week. Hopefully my, both of our internet will be more stable. Thanks for sticking with it. I appreciate it. Bye all.